One of the mysteries of the story of Dances with Wolves happens early in the film when the main character, Lieutenant Dunbar, receives his orders at Fort Hays on the American frontier. Why did the officer in charge act so strangely? And then end himself with a pistol before the lieutenant even left the fort? We can look for answers in the text of the book itself. Dunbar slid a hand inside his tunic, drawing out a folded piece of paper. He was worried about this sheet of army paper because his orders were written down there. Looking at the order reminded him of how it came to be, and that weird interview with the liquor-breathed major. In his eagerness to be posted, he'd gone straight from the train depot to headquarters at Fort Hays. The major was the first and only person he'd spoken to. What follows are the major's out-of-place comments about knights, peasants, and kings. A sarcastic return salute. Admitting all social norms are breaking down for him. And finally, the end. Why was he in this mental state, and why did he end himself? There are two answers to that question, one regarding the character's unhappy life, and the other in how he affected the plot of the story. Let's start with the first. This major had, for some time, clung to sanity by the slenderest thread, and the thread had finally snapped 10 minutes before Lieutenant Dunbar walked into the office. The major had sat calmly at his desk, hands clasped neatly in front of him, and forgotten his entire life. It had been a powerless life, fueled by the pitiful handouts that come to those who serve obediently but make no mark. But all the years of being passed over, all the years of lonely bachelorhood, all the years of struggle with the bottle, had vanished as if by magic. The bitter grind of Major Fambro's existence had been supplanted by an imminent and lovely event. He would be crowned king of Fort Hays sometime before supper. In the film, the major does not end himself. But there is a description of him leaving Fort Hays when the last garrison from Fort Sedgwick returns. Old Major Fambro, a mid-level administrator with a lackluster record, had gone off his rocker. He had stood one afternoon in the middle of the parade ground, jabbering incoherently about his kingdom and asking over and over for his crown. The poor fellow had been shipped east just a few days ago. And so the man who had led a life that was, in his own opinion, powerless and meaningless, sought success in a fantasy world of his own creation. Or in the film, chose to end his suffering by his own hand. The book does not contain enough information to completely explain the personal demons of this fictional character. But I am reminded of what Jordan Peterson wrote in 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. The collective pursuit of any valued goal produces a hierarchy, as some will be better and some worse at that pursuit, no matter what it is. And it is the pursuit of goals that in large part lends life its sustained meaning. We experience almost all the emotions that make life deep and engaging as a consequence of moving successfully towards something deeply desired and valued. The price we pay for that involvement is the inevitable difference in outcome. Now let's talk about how the major's exit from Fort Hays served the story of Dances with Wolves. Major Fambro's sad departure carried away all trace of Lieutenant Dunbar. Officially, the young officer existed only in the addled recesses of Major Fambro's cracked brain. So it came to be that only one person on Earth was left with any notion as to the whereabouts or even the existence of Lieutenant Dunbar. And that person was a poorly groomed bachelor civilian who mattered very little to anyone, Timmins. You may remember what happened to him after delivering the lieutenant to the abandoned fort. leaving Lieutenant Dunbar isolated, alone, and forgotten in northeastern Colorado. His only human interaction would be with the Native Americans who made peace with him, and eventually welcomed him into their tribe. Ending the Major's life before Lieutenant Dunbar even finished leaving Fort Hays allowed the film to close that loop without having to revisit the fort. And those are the two reasons Major Fambro exited the story of Dances with Wolves. What do you think? Was he a tragic figure? Or was he just a plot device to isolate the main character and set up his own journey? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel for new videos every week or two, and see the description below for a list of books, films, and online resources featured in this video.